Hi there and welcome back to another video. Today I thought it'd be cool to go through every Super League team's best squad put out by Betfred Super League themselves. They've compiled a big list of what everybody's potentially best squad looks like. I thought it'd be interesting to go through and kind of rate what every squad's looking like. So to begin with, we're going to get straight into it. We're going to have a look at Catalan Dragons team. I'll put it up here. And straight off the bat, looking at Charlie Staines, he was a little bit inconsistent in the NRL and I've heard mixed stuff. Any kind of NRL import into the game, you've got to have a look at and go, you know what, they've got a good chance of being pretty decent. But I've heard quite a few West Tigers fans weren't so disappointed about him leaving. He played primarily wing over there, so who knows, new team, fullback might give him a new lease of life if that's where they decide to play him. Of course, Tommy Makinson, a veteran of the game, we know how good he is. It's just whether he can stay, injury-free and relatively okay. Nick Kotrick, I thought was pretty good for the Dragons last season, but I don't think he's kind of lived up to potentially how good he could be, seeing as he's just historically been such an amazing player. It'll be great to see him get back to some absolutely mental form again. And Solomona Fartape, if that's how I pronounce it. Another player I don't know a great deal about, but I've heard really, really good things from him. I mean, already just with these players that we've gone through, you're thinking, how the hell have Catalan Dragons stayed under salary cap? There must be some nice French villas going on. But equally, on paper, this team is looking really, really solid, to be honest. Manasseh Cajo, again, not sure too much about him, but again, I've heard good things. Toby Sexton, now this is, one of the best Super League signings this season, if not the best. I think Tyson Smooth is a close one for Wakefield, but honestly, Sexton's an absolute class player, and it's proved that he's still good enough to play NRL with the fact that he's going to be going back to Perth Bears. So it just kind of showcases how good it is. I don't know how good it's for Catalan because of the fact that they're going to gain him and then immediately lose him, so I don't know how good that's for them long term. Usually it's pretty good to keep a half-back and keep a good pairing, but I think he genuinely could be make or break in terms of the Dragons season. And then Lewis Dodd, another player who I actually thought got an unnecessary amount of flack for his time at Souths. I don't think he got given a fair chance, to be fair, and I think he will be a really, really good player. I think he'll find his confidence again at the Dragons, hopefully, and I think that'll be a really, really interesting half-back pairing. I think Lewis Dodd's already signed a contract extension of 1 year, despite signing with the club already before he's even played a game, which is an interesting one. Julian Busquet, another good player, and Alex Jacosta, people we've seen before, solid players. It's good to still see some French players in the squad. They're looking pretty damn solid as usual. They'll do a job. Chris Sate, Zach Lipowicz and Ben Condon and Benjamin Garcia. You've got some really solid forwards there that are going to absolutely do a job. I don't think it's the strongest forward pack in Super League, but you know what, it's pretty damn up there. I think Dragons at their best, it was just their defensive line speed that was just terrifying. I mean, in the first 30 minutes of games, they were just absolutely mullering teams. And I think if they can get back to that, and then also on top of that with Toby and Lewis, find Kotrick and Makinson and things like that, I think, they'll look pretty lethal. Cruz Lehman on the bench, which is, a big one. What a player he is. Isaac Fasamolaula, I'm not going to butcher that name. Again, a player I don't know much about, and then same with Frank Maria and Josh Allen. But you know what? On paper, it should be a top 6 side. But with Dragons, you just never know. It can very much go one way or the other. Up next, we've got the York Knights, and this is a team that's going to be an interesting one. I don't think it's particularly stacked, but I think it's looking pretty okay. A few people are saying that they'll shock a few. They've got some decent talent and they've made some okay signings, but whether it's enough, we will see as the season goes. So Toa Matafa, fullback, it's looking like. Again, I don't know much about this guy, but again, I've heard good things. Ben Jones Bishop, it's crazy to think that this guy was a Super League legend for the longest amount of time, and then to see him back in Super League. Same with Paul McShane, really. 2 players in this lineup that left Super League arguably because they were, past it, and they've now ended up back in Super League, which, I mean, they are still quality players, but it does tell you something if the fact they already left because they probably weren't up to the standard and now they're back in it. Jordan Lip and Sam Wood. So Sam Wood was one of Castleford Tigers' best players a couple of seasons ago, and then it was just he kind of I don't want to say fell off, but he had a season that, to his own admission, wasn't as good, considering he went from representing England at one point to then just not having his best season. But again, nobody at Cast did. But I genuinely think that he'll be really, really good. I think he'll be a good leader for the squad, and he's actually pretty strong and dangerous out wide. And then there's quite a few players on this list that are kind of unknowns, really, like Scott Galliano, Atta Hingand, Liam Harris, Jack Martin. I think that they've proven that they're decent enough, but whether or not they'll go well in Super League, I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Of course, the biggest signing on this list, Paul Vaughan. I mean, what an absolute monster he's been. Probably one of the best signings for Knights, just really solidifying their pack. He'll be a great leader, and he'll definitely be able to help some of the younger forwards and get them on top. And obviously Josh Griffin, Jesse D, Jordan Thompson. I don't know how they're going to go in Super League competing with some of the other packs, but I think they'll go okay. Justin Sangare, pretty decent signing, I think. Deneve Balmforth, Mitch Clark, Xavier Va. Not the strongest bench we've seen, but I think York will do just okay. I think they'll come above Toulouse, which we'll look at Toulouse's team next. And then obviously I think them and Bradford will have some pretty decent clashes. But at this point, maybe Bradford edge them. I guess we'll find out. So, looking at the next squad, realistically. So, Bradford, direct competitor. So, after the friendly games, this has shed a bit of light. I'm filming this just after we've seen a couple of these teams play with various levels of teams and things like that. But Caleb Akins, people are saying it should be Hooley at fullback. People are saying it should be Caleb. I think either or. I guess it's nice that they have kind of flip between those two and see who does well, but I think Caleb's going to do a pretty good job. Jadon Okunbo, I'd said this guy's going to absolutely rip it up in the Super League this season. I thought he was stand out for them last season for Bradford. He struggled a bit under the high ball, a little bit, but I mean, it's one game, so it's hard to tell, let's be honest. But he's looking pretty good as well. Esam Masters, what an absolutely incredible signing for the Bulls, that is. I thought they've done so well to get him, and he's probably going to be one of the standout marquee players. Waka Blake, another one that's probably, this is a step up for him, back into the Super League level. Seeing what it's like, that'll be interesting. Ethan Ryan, I think he'll have no problem, finding the try line at all. Jaden Nikarima, again, I think there's going to be a lot on his shoulders in terms of, how well the Bulls do this season. And honestly, it's weird because this guy, he was NRL level and he should be. I still think he's got it in him. I just don't know whether it's a mindset thing or finding the right club. He's had issues before, like discipline stuff. But I think, he should do relatively okay. I think he got an interception in the last game. So who knows? This could be the perfect season for him. Rowan Milnes, the ex-Castleford Tigers and Hull KR halfback, who was relatively okay for Cas. He was fairly consistent. He wasn't doing anything particularly special, but he did his job. And you know what? If he can play in a good system at Bradford, then I think they'll do okay. I don't know whether Jaden will take most of the reins of the work, but I guess we'll see. Ryan Sutton, thought he'll be pretty solid this year, and of course Andy Ackers, the other big signing on this list, which I think he's a pretty quality player. He's proved it over years and years at Leeds, so I think he will be really, really good for him, boss him around the park, which is nice because then obviously they have just someone a bit more senior in the club to lead them about. Logan Lewis, another one that come from Salford, come all the way from Australia, was playing at Salford, then everything went west there, but he's, proved pretty tough in most games, just, high work rate, high repeat efforts, so I think he'll be pretty good for him as well. Dan Russell, Ed Chamberlain and Joe Mellor, all pretty quality players. Again, this is why I think this team will slightly edge York, but whether or not they'll go any further in the league, I can't really see it, but we'll see. Mitch Suter, Aribi Doro's been an absolute terrifying runner for KR, just whether or not he will gel with this Bradford team and just stay consistent. I think he's just a bit of a one-dimensional player. He's very much get the ball, carry, absolutely steam down the field, but it'll be interesting to see how he performs. But I think overall the Bradford squad is looking pretty damn decent. They've probably made quite a few good signings, more so than some of the other teams, particularly the team we're about to look at. So having a look at Toulouse. Now, Toulouse, to be honest, I can't see them doing anything this season, if I'm being perfectly honest, just because of the lack of signings they've made. They've got a few, like they managed to get like Tyler Dupree, but realistic, like they've got, Benjamin Laguerre, but how much are they really going to do this season? Jake Shorrock's in the squad. I just don't think they've gone on a big recruitment drive. They've just kind of sticking to what they've had and just picked up what they could, really. So to be honest, I think they'll be dead last this season. I can't really see them beating anyone. Maybe close games with the Bulls or any of the new promoted teams. So I guess we'll see, though. They might prove me wrong. They've still got time to make a few signings. We're not quite there yet, but I guess we'll find out pretty soon. Let's have a look at Castleford Tigers. So I'm going to try and be as least biased as possible because Castleford are the team I go for, despite the fact I watch every Super League game and every NRL game and whatever. Mainly I do go for Castleford. If we're basing it off the last performance against Saints, then honestly I'm a bit worried. However, it's just a friendly and it's just early in the season, although they did have a full strength squad out. So the main man in this for Cass, considering they've signed 13 players, the main one being Blake Taff. He's played in NRL Grand Finals. He's probably got the biggest accomplishments on like most of the players on this team. Pretty solid player. He should be really, really good for Cass. I don't know whether they'll even put him in at 6 if it just doesn't work out with the halfback pairing, but I think overall he's going to be a nice little replacement for Tex Hoy. Semi Valomere, I think he's been out with a little bit of an injury, but he should be pretty good. Another one brought in. Zach Sinney, I thought he was really good last season. He even played fullback. He probably played better at fullback than he did at centre. But I think he's been pretty solid for us. A few people have said his defence has been a bit touch and go, but I guess we'll see. Christian Mapalangi, what a name that is. An absolute young gun. Another quarter spot. Cassie's last quarter spot filled with another centre who's looking, really, really good. He's had a few injuries, so he needs to stay injury free. That's the main one. But if he doesn't, he's like a gun young player coming through. Ravawala, he scored 2 tries in the last game. He's absolutely the biggest winger I've ever seen, so he should really help Cass coming out of yardage. Dejan Assi, I thought was pretty good last season. A few games where he really came into his own, managed to get over for a couple of tries, but I think he needs to be a lot better for Cass, if I'm totally honest. I think that his kicking can be better, and so can his just general play and organising. Tom Weaver, hopefully he can help Assi out with that. He did a few kicks in that Saints game, but again weren't amazing. So I think there's a lot on those guys' shoulders, those halfback pairing. Brad Singleton, I'm a bit concerned if he's Cass's best prop. I do think Cass needs another forward. He's a good player. He's a veteran in the game. He's just had his testimonial, but I don't think it's exactly what Cass need now. Maybe he'll do stints off the bench, but I don't think him being the best forward's the best option. Liam Hood, he was come from Wakefield, a good winning Wakefield side, but whether or not he's still got enough in him, because he's like knocking on a little bit, but he still should be pretty good. So we'll see. I can be super critical with Cass because it is my team. George Lawler, again, who looks like he's going to be playing in the other prop position, which is a bit mental to me, considering I don't know whether I saw him more as a back rower or even maybe a loose. I think he's slightly on the small side as a forward, which is disappointing for me to say because I'm on the small side for a forward, but it is the case as forwards just get taller and bigger and whatever. Jordan Lane, absolutely great signing. I think apparently he was pretty good, and of course Alex Mellor, who's been given the captain shirt because he's been super consistent all year, like probably one of the most consistent players last year and stand out, so that's well deserved for him. Joe Westerman at 13. I was hoping Castleford signed another 13, but it's looking like they might go with either Stimson or Westerman at loose. Whether or not Westy can still do it, he's probably only got like one more season in him. Or whether they put Stimson there, I'm not entirely sure, but to be perfectly honest, I think a new 13 would have been better. I would have rather have kept Horn and kept him at 13 and had Westy and Horn swap, but I guess we'll see. Chris Atkin, again, I think he's like 33, 34, he's like knocking on a bit, but again, he had a pretty good game in the last season. He's versatile, he's good in the halves, 9, anywhere like that, so good player just to have. Jack Ashworth, the big forward that, did get banned last season, so I don't even know what's happening with his ban, but, big no-nonsense forward, I could see him taking a good position. Joe Stimson, potentially going at 13, mainly played prop last year, another one from the NRL taking up a quarter spot, but I don't think he's been so standout considering he is a quarter spot player. Rennie Fatoni, another one from Wakefield, which a lot of Wakey fans have said that once every 4 games he might have a standout one, but consistency wise, touch and go, so I guess we'll see what happens in terms of that. But there's Cass. It's tough to say where Cass are going to end up because, again, on paper it's a bit like Catalan. This is a really solid side, but whether or not, they can gel. Plus there's quite a lot of young, it's a young spine in Weaver and Assey, and even Taft's pretty young. So I think there's a lot of guys that are going to take some time to gel, and I think if they can stick with this team and just improve on it, I think it could be really good in a season or so. But I still think it's going to be tough for them this early. So because this video is going to get a bit long, I'm just going to do one last team and then do a second part today. So we're going to have a look at the Huddersfield Giants. Now, I always feel for Huddersfield because they just really struggle to seem to get things to gel in, and they've had a lot of issues with injury. Like last season, they had like half their team out. So Nye Levels, I think, was a really good pickup from KR. That whole debacle was crazy. I was surprised to see KR lose Eveld. I don't know if there was a falling out or something like that. But he's been pretty good, pretty solid player. Adam Swift and Jacob Gagai, solid edge players. If you can get the ball to them, they will do a job. Liam Sutcliffe, Sam Alsall and Tui Lolohea. Lolohea's got the craziest build for a half ever. Like, the man can move, and he's a size, it's nuts. You see this Huddersfield team, like, I don't know, you just hit or miss. I don't think they're going to get anywhere crazy up the table. They'll be looking at, like, their goal, I imagine, will be mid-table at best. Chris Patolo, Zach Wolford, George King, Sam Hewitt, Asher O'Donnell, Harry Rushton. You see, that's a decent team, but I don't know whether it's, the best Super League squad possible. I still think that they've got a few signings to make. It's actually that when you go to their bench at Tom Burgess and Matty English was standout. He's just so consistent. He did a stint at Cass, and I wish we could have kept him. Great player. Tom Burgess, if he can stay fit, it's Tom Burgess. He's a Burgess brother. Like, they just absolutely do a job. But you've got to think, I wonder how much salary cap he's taking up that could have potentially been sent elsewhere. George Flanagan, probably one of the standout players on this list. Absolute young gun player that's going to be really, really one for the future. I think they've signed a massive extension on him just to keep him, which fair play because he's just so good. And then, of course, Tristan Powell. So, Huddersfield side, there's a few unknowns in that. I don't think they'll do anything crazy. I think they'll be looking, in and around York and Bradford, just with Toulouse below them. Who knows, they might surprise a few, but I can't particularly see it, which is kind of sad to see because, Huddersfield's like the birth of rugby league. It would be good to see them, playing some good rugby again. But anyway, if you've made it this far, thank you very much. If you like the video, that massively helps me out because it pushes it out to more people. And if you've not already subscribed, that'd be brilliant. And I'll be definitely putting out a part 2 of this video, so don't worry if I've not done your team because they'll be on the next part.